Thank you for listening to Do You Ever Wonder? And we hope that you enjoy the show. Next week, we will. Welcome to Do You Ever Wonder? The show that brings you answers to many of the questions that you may have, but with no one to ask. Do You Ever Wonder is hosted by Mike Haltman, CEO of Hallmark Abstract Service, who, like you, has always been deeply curious about a wide variety of topics. Each week, Mike will be speaking with guests who are leaders in their field and who have inspirational stories to tell. So now, sit back and enjoy the show.
Welcome, everyone. This is Mike Haltman. Normally on Do You Ever Wonder, we have stories of interest because they cover things, that people really do wonder about. One time we had a KGB agent, but today we have a much more serious topic, and it is something that people should be wondering about. And basically, it entails a storm that's covering the United States and even elsewhere in the world. And it's not weather, but it's the scourge of military veteran suicide, and it's an incredibly serious problem. The statistic is 20 plus veterans a day die by suicide, and for me, it's a little bit of a personal issue as the board chair of the Heroes to Heroes Foundation. We work with combat vets who are suffering moral injury and live at serious risk of death by suicide. And today's guest, Chris Jachimiec, he has lived the story. He's a military veteran. He's experienced the excruciating pain of a loved one dying by suicide. And I welcome you, Chris, and I thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on today, Michael. I really appreciate being here and having this conversation. And I commend you and the team at the Heroes to Heroes Foundation for addressing moral injury among our service members, because that's one of the topics that's not discussed as openly as it probably should be on this, the meaning and morality of warfare and things that we're exposed to as veterans. So thank you for bringing that to the forefront.
Absolutely. It's an honor for me to be able to participate in that charity. But I saw you on Fox News. I think it was on a Saturday morning. You were on talking about gun safety, and I know gun safety is very near and dear to your heart. In your lifetime, so you served several tours overseas.
I did. I joined the Air Force in 1999. I deployed overseas prior to 9/11 and deployed a few times after 9/11 to Afghanistan. And also a period of time is I worked the drone operations at a location out here in Nevada, to where we were actually engaged in combat every day. So we would drive up and do our work on the drone mission and then drive back down to the local populace here in Las Vegas after our shift was over. So that in itself creates some different moral changes when you're fighting a war overseas from your own backyard and then coming home and having dinner at night. There's some complexities that are involved in that operations.
Oh, I can't even imagine the disconnect. Usually, I think in the Air Force, if you were a fighter pilot dropping bombs, there's a little bit of a disconnect. You're not on the ground. You don't necessarily see the damage that a bomb can cause. But similar to what you're doing, operating drones from Vegas, it's an incredible thing, and you can understand, or I can somewhat understand how the pressure and anxiety and depression it all builds. So now, in 2017, you experienced a horrific loss when your brother took his life, and if you're willing to just talk about it a little bit, that would be great.
Yeah, definitely. So the build up to 2017 was a little bit of a struggle. My brother is a Marine Corps veteran. He had deployments to Iraq, and really kind of struggled with some of his things with that. Is during this time is he had just recently exited the Marine Corps and was struggling a little bit to find his path in life after leaving the service. It took him a while to be able to join and figure out that's what he wanted to do with his life. He prided himself on being a Marine and being that. And so when he was told to separate from the Marine Corps because of some of the disciplinary infractions there, like things kind of started to unravel a little bit. And this wasn't the first time that we had challenges with them. Is there were some times where in my role, I had some capabilities and some skills that the Air Force provided me as a senior non-commissioned officer on how to help people out. So there were some times where I intervened with my brother just to make sure things were safe because my family couldn't quite speak the language in the military, but I could. He was down in the San Diego area at the time, and I was stationed out here in Las Vegas. And there was some nuances that I noticed between differences between the branches of service and safe storage of firearms and some things that I had been trained on. And so that was really the first intervention with my brother. In 2017, I was at a school for the Air Force for enlisted education, a professional development school, and I would get the call that my brother had died by suicide. And it really kind of upended my world at that time because I was filling a position in the Air Force to where my job was people. I was charged by the commanding officer to care for the people all the time. And the grief of losing my own brother was struck on me, and some of the challenges that I faced in that moment and weeks and months and years beyond that was I could care for my airmen and the unit so well, but I couldn't care for my own family. And I carried that deep moral injury with me because, when we join the military, we're concerned about not only protecting the United States, but our own internal families and everything like that. So there was this feeling of uneasiness and let down personally that I felt for a long time.
So what, I know you've been involved with different causes. What was it that really got you pointed in the right direction? Was able to bring you out of your grief, your guilt. What was it that really helped to turn you around?
It was a combination of several things. Like there were compounding tragedies and traumas that happened after my brother's passing, but it was a leap of faith that I was encouraged by peers within my own organization and people that I trusted to finally go out and seek help. My initial ways of dealing with my brother's loss and other events that happened after that were unhealthy and were not good at all. I coped with alcohol a lot. My body physically was ravaged. There were random physical ailments that were happening to me because of the position I was in. And I coped initially with alcohol and I dove in heavy to work. And people don't think about work as a coping mechanism as too much, but as when you're charged and you're in this position of importance in the military, sometimes it's like you're so hyper focused on the mission and making sure the mission happens. So when things occur to you, you almost in some of those instances dive into working harder on the mission and use it as a distraction because it's where you can perform, it's where you can prove yourself and make the next step. And that was really unhealthy. I recognized it to a point and I discussed it because I had trust with a military chaplain that the chaplain had to pull it out of me. And that was the first step of getting help, which led to a domino effect of other people coming into my trust circle, encouraging me and making connections to people within certain sectors and certain people at the right time, pointing me in right directions on things that would become very crucial to my recovery and my grief work and the trauma work that would happen in there.
So that sounds a lot like, and I don't know if it's equivalent with the chaplain, but it sounds a lot like peer support.
Absolutely. And I would equate not only peer support, but the companionship that I received from other sibling loss survivors by taking a chance and going in and attending some other organizations sessions and care groups that really kind of transformed me. So I started going into recovery in a substance abuse recovery program through the Air Force. And my mental health counselor there happened to be a volunteer for an organization called the Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors, to where she mentored kids who had lost a loved one, whether due to suicide or combat, and encouraged me to, as a fellow military survivor, to attend one of their events. And I would in around this time in 2018, and it would be there to where I would be surrounded by other families and especially other brothers and sisters that had lost a loved one. That was one of the first times I felt like open to where I could discuss the loss among people who I knew what I was going through.
Right.
And I met others there, and it really transformed me and started a very positive path towards my healing journey.
That's great. I often say that, if I'm talking to a vet who has something that they would like to say, they're not going to say it to me. I can't walk the walk, I can't talk the talk, and I can't have any idea about what it is that they've dealt with or are going through. And that's why, the peer support aspect, like whether it's with Heroes to Heroes or any other organization, you need to know that there are other people who are feeling the same way that you are, who are dealing with the same things that you are, who are struggling in the same ways that you are, and I mean, there's really no other way, to be able to open up and begin the process of healing.
Well, yeah, you're right, and it's because there's that inherent trust of the shared experiences there. It's almost automatic credibility. It's like, okay, I can look at this person across the room from me. I know that they have a similar experience to mine, so I can trust them potentially a little bit quicker with some of this information I'm going to share, because they're going to be like, yeah, I've been through this too, and I know how to walk this path. And utilizing peer support as this healthy companioning guide to maybe get to a place that you can't envision right now, because the fog of grief, the fog of trauma, the fog of moral injury is clouding any vision, and you need that peer that will help bring you out of that fog, to show you that there is hope, there's growth, there's recovery, and to being that guiding light per se, to some safe harbor that is out there.
100%. I think another key aspect to what it is that you say is a lack of judgment. I think one of the keys that keep people from opening up to other people is a fear of judgment, that they're going to judge me, they're going to look down at what I experienced. And I think that peer support of people who experienced what you experienced is critical.
Right, and I like where you're going with that, because you touch on something, especially with men, it is like the trust that has to be built up there because of the perception. Like, you discuss any of these things to where you feel inadequate, or you don't feel like you're up to being able to be a provider. Um, you don't feel like you are meeting that, where actually discussing your issues and the perception of weakness, because I'm sharing a vulnerability with you, is I'm going to come off as a weak man, or I'm unable to be a provider, or do whatever, be capable in life. That deters a lot of people from opening up. When it comes to mental health, it's like, we want to bury it, we want to be able to solve this on our own, which is a mistruth, because in the line of work that we do together, we understand that a pain shared is a pain halved. So it's better to rely on brothers and sisters that are out there that understand that, and so you don't have to carry that weight by yourself.
100%. 100%. That's yeah. I agree completely. So you're involved with you're an ambassador with End Family Fire, which is why you were on Fox that day, I believe.
Correct. Yeah.
W- Tell me a little bit about what's End Family Fire all about, because it's a very important mission.
Yeah, there's some misnomers there. And what it is, it's about encouraging safe storage of firearms and responsible firearm ownership. Is we know the majority of guns, gun deaths are by suicide. It's a national conversation we're having to have, and there's nothing wrong with owning a gun. 99% of gun owners do so responsibly, the harm's going to be there. But it is the most lethal means of dying by suicide. And many of these can be prevented by putting a barrier between access to that, just to slowing down the decision chain on that. And the one way to do this is just securely storing it. And part of the conversation comes in that as well too, is like, you can be a responsible firearm owner by securely storing or securely staging your firearms to be, most likely somebody in your home is going to be injured by your firearm than rather it being used in self-defense by somebody breaking into your home. So why not set it up in a way to where if you do need to use it, it is secured responsibly. Only the folks who you want to have access to it can have access to it. And then if there's a moment of anything that goes on, it's, that these are secured storely or staged properly in case there's an incident in the home. And sometimes you have the insider threat to where you may be going through something. There's some levels of stress to where you need some sort of de-escalation between yourself emotionally to be able to properly handle, a lethal weapon. And that's what the campaigns about is making sure that there is responsible firearm ownership and that these lethal devices are placed in areas to where in case something happens, like there's a barrier to slow down some decision making there.
You know what? So my question was going to be, and you answered my question. Sometimes when I see the commercials and I wonder, lock your gun in a safe, secure place. But if the person who does that is the person who may go to use it, there was kind of a disconnect. But you bring up the point of slowing the decision chain, making it where it's not just sitting on the table next to you. You have to consciously make a decision, make a move, do something where hopefully in the interim, calmer thoughts step in.
Right. And even just, it can just be that quick moment is you've got your firearms stored or whatever, you see a picture of something that gives you hope, or there's something that can like change the way that this decision is. It gives you that amount of time to like, hey, if you need to reach out for a crisis, like somebody can help intervene. You can make that phone call to 988 or to your buddy out there, your trusted peer. You can have a conversation with somebody that, hey, I'm going through something, this is what I'm thinking, or that. And it can even elicit the conversation is like, I'm going through something a little bit now. Can you handle my firearms for me temporarily? And from my own experience that I've gone through, is like I've had that conversation with somebody. Is when I went into treatment the first time, like I wasn't able to go through some of the programming that I had with the firearm, with me on a daily basis. So I had a conversation with somebody I trusted. I was like, during this time frame, while I'm undergoing this, do you mind holding on to this for me? And having that took a lot of guts just to have that conversation. A lot of times we're more forthcoming. It's like, yeah, I'll hold on to your stuff for you. I'll hold to that. But the opposite side, it's like relinquishing something that you've fought your entire life for, a right that you believe in, to say, hey, look, I need you to trust me with this right that I've fought for, my right to bear arms. Can you do this for me while I go take care of myself? And then we have that mutual conversation. It's like, okay, you've gone through this. It's like, it's time to you've gotten to a spot to where you are responsible, and here it is this is your firearm returned to you because you're in a better place now.
So that conversation is held with a peer, someone who you have that relationship with, who you formed that relationship with.
Right. And in a lot of those cases, it's going to be a family member or a fellow veteran that you trust. And even a step further is you may have a relationship with somebody who owns a firearms store or FFL license, like to where you want to trust it outside the home. But Michael, you said it directly. It's a peer. It's a peer or it's a family member, because it's somebody that you have a trusted relationship with, and that's where the power comes in. Is can I trust you to take care of me? And the more and trust gets built up over time. And me personally, I would rather have it trusted with somebody that knows me, that understands what I'm going through, and that can make some judgment calls on my behalf, and be there to be able to help me or help others out when times may not be, um, when times may be a little bit difficult.
So the crisis is if somebody does not have that peer, does not have that trusted relationship, and the gun just stays with them. That's where bad things happen.
It does. It does. There's that emotional intelligence that comes into it. Is like, how do I protect myself? And in a lot of suicidal crises, is the that may not be processed in somebody's own brain. Is we see through a lot of the training we go through, and that's out there, is the signs and symptoms, is feeling like somebody is a burden, feeling like there is no hope, and caught in you can get caught in that logical trap, to where the burdensome and feeling like there's no hope, there's no meaning, there's no purpose, that can spiral out of control pretty quickly. And if there's a barrier in there to where at least you see some sort of glimmer of hope, that the will to live is greater than the will to die, whether it be as difficult as possible, is if there even is that little glimmer of hope, and there's some space between, um, a tool to make a decision, is that can be the matter of life or death right there.
So now, from your commercials, does the organization often get people calling?
There's a lot of good feedback that comes in, is like, the lack of understanding. It's like, I need to know. It's like, my loved one loves to keep their firearm out unsecure on top of the nightstand. Hey, thanks for letting me know about some of the resources that are out there, whether it be as simple as a cable lock, or just as a gun safe. And then it can be pointed in the right directions on, part of responsible firearm ownership is finding that device for storage, or is security, that works best for you and your needs. You may have, multiple weapons or firearms in your homes, and you need different solutions that can fit in. And there's a lot of great ones that are out there that fit individual needs based upon what the ownership looks like.
So are there resources that people can go to if they're having an issue, if they don't have that peer support? I know there's organizations like mine, but do you work hand in hand with other organizations that people can be referred to?
Right there. There's several out there, that I personally like. I think, first, the National Sports Shooting Foundation is doing a lot with firearm safety that's out there. They're the big ones that bring together firearms manufacturers and everything like that. There's interest in secure storage there. They recently have hosted gun check safety week. There was one that happened just here in June, and there's going to be another that happens in September. And Family Fire as well has the resources that are there. And then the other one that I like is, they're called Walk the Talk America. And what Walk the Talk America does, it's a firearms manufacturer by the name of Michael Sodini and Jake Weiskirchen, who is a mental health provider, and it's bringing together clinician and educating clinicians on firearms culture, that's out there, to have these conversations, to take free and anonymous mental health screenings to see where you're at, and to understand the rights of ownership, balancing the rights of also, checking the mental health, and being involved is in suicide prevention. Is, are you in the right mental state, or is your mind sharp as you are physically to be able to handle these tools? And it balances that conversation of, the rules of firearm safety, along with responsible firearms ownership and responsible storage.
So you live in Las Vegas,
Yes.
and Las Vegas has a huge veteran community. Las Vegas also has a very disproportionate number of veteran death by suicide versus non-military. The statistic of 20 to 22 plus a day hasn't changed a lot over time. Do you see anything that you are happy with or comfortable with that you think that statistic will hopefully improve?
I think there's a lot of good energy being put in by multiple uh, things that are going on there. I think there's some challenges when it comes to like some economic stability and some of the Maslow hierarchy of needs, or what we would call social determinants of health, that kind of can influence this a little bit. Um, I think what I like is I'm seeing out there is there's a lot of energy in the veteran sphere about peer-to-peer connections, and a lot of organizations that are popping up to be able to build that community, because that's where I feel like a lot of things are falling off on the wayside. It's the loneliness, it's the isolation, it's the I'm the only one going through this. And the more we can have these connective tissues and organizations focused on connecting face to face, or even digitally through certain platforms and things like video gaming and AI, is the more we can rebuild communities, the better off we're going to be able to prevent suicide. And this is where we see partnerships that are coming together with multiple veteran service organizations or entities within our communities that can touch on key aspects and to find things that attach to and build a community for somebody that's there. So from my personal perspective is I like combat sports, I like martial arts, I like cycling. So those are the communities that I've gravitated towards, is something that involves physical activity, to where I'm in part of like-minded individuals that enjoy physical activity such as mixed martial arts or cycling, and create that community based upon doing something that you love. So the more we can have this and connect our veterans that are in isolation to these activities, I think we're going to make a lot of headway in continuing to reduce veteran suicide through connective tissues like this.
The last question I have is, how do we, if somebody is depressed, is isolated, has pretty much shut themselves off, how do we find them?
It's difficult. It's very difficult, and that's a concern of so many others as well too. Is how do you reach the unreachable? And I think it's by just planting that seed and having an honest and trusting conversation with them, trying to pull things out by some authentic listening and responding, is understanding and getting out to somebody to say, like, hope is possible. Like, life is not full of doom and gloom, and just planting the seed to give different opportunities for somebody to try something different. In large part, it takes a little bit of risk from somebody that you're reaching into. Is like, oh, I may not like that, or coming out and having an open mind, and then you find something simple to where, like, you provide this rebirth in life. um, and I've found that personally through a few things. Is I never knew I was gonna like cycling as much as I did. I always loved riding bikes, but then, like, I got in this right mindset, and through the Department of Defense Warrior Games, I met some other things, and it's like it became this like competition and this next goal to achieve that was greater than that. And now it's just baked into part of my life, to where, like, this is
Right.
something I really enjoy, and it's like now this is a hobby that I'm out there, a great physical activity, a great community I'm a part of. And it was because somebody said, hey, here's a chance, you want to try doing this, and it's blossomed into something that is really beautiful.
That's fantastic. I mean, listening to you, listening to what you're doing, understanding what it is that Heroes to Heroes is doing, and knowing that there are so many more organizations doing the same thing, I think there is hopefully a much brighter future ahead, and that 20 plus statistic will begin to go down until hopefully it reaches zero. But
And that's what I hope for too, is the only number that matters in that is one. And how many lives can we save, and how many lives have been changed by the efforts such as Heroes to Heroes that are out there, to where you can recover from moral injury and things that are there, and creating that new community of like-minded individuals to give hope to others. So if you're a
100%.
veteran listening in today, like, you're not alone. There's hopes out there. We just need to find that path and point you in the right direction. And there are more that understand what you are going through in your life than you probably think.
Amen. Amen. So if somebody is watching this and wants to reach out, who, where, what would their first initial step be, or does it depend on what level of depth, what the depth of their emotions are?
You can get connected by, believe it or not, 988 doesn't have to just always be a crisis call line. Is a crisis could be, I'm not connected to somebody in my community, I feel alone, and they can help connect you to your resources. I would say lean on your local VA suicide prevention outreach team, and even one that I particularly enjoy is the vet centers through the VAs that are in your local community. Most of the folks on staff at the vet center are veterans themselves, have that lived experience that they've been through, and they know the ins and outs of resources in your community to connect you to unique things that may be going on. Whether you want to go back to school, whether you're interested in chess or you're interested in trading card games or video games, those are the boots on the ground that can get you connected at a local level to things that may pique your interest.
That's phenomenal. You know what, Chris, it was an absolute pleasure having you on. You've turned what is an unhappy story to a somewhat of a good ending, that there is hope, and that, hopefully that we will solve this problem and bring the statistics down to where there are no military veteran death by suicide. So I thank you for everything you do. You're a good man.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that.
Absolutely, and hopefully I'll speak to you again in the future, and you can tell me how much things have improved.
For sure.
All right. Thank you.
Welcome to Thank you for listening to Do You Ever Wonder? And we hope that you enjoyed the show. Next week, we will have another terrific guest telling their story. And if there are any specific topics you'd like to hear more about, please don't hesitate to let us know. Our curiosity, like yours, knows no bounds. Please subscribe and like and share this episode on your social media. See you next week.